Our main job is working with landowners who have resource-related, particularly soil and water problems on their land. We go meet with them, look at the problem, and then from the different kind of practices, conservation practices we have, we make suggestions, recommendations, and then they choose which one will work best for their operation. When I first came out here would have been probably like 1982. Bob had purchased the original acres. I want to think it's 15 acres or something like this. It was a little place in the country for him. And the first thing that I worked with him on was actually the pond that's kind of behind us here. And then over time, Bob was interested in trying to do, have it for fishing and that. So gave him information of some of the fish hatcheries where he could get some stock to put in there, which he has done. And then just over the time of maintaining the pond, things like that. Like if you look at the pond now, you see it's all grass, which that's the way we like to see it and recommend it. Then as he expanded his operation, started getting into more of the farming business, some of the land just a little bit over that way, I think was the next purchase that he had. And that had been previously cropland, and he wanted to do cattle and things like that. So we worked with him on converting that cropland to permanent pasture. We had one of our specialists come down, a grazing specialist that works in particularly what we call plant grazing. Went over the farm, have different recommendations on things that Bob could do to better utilize those forages. And as Bob expanded his operation, I forgot what the total acres are, but it was cut over timberland. So he was going from that cut over land now wanting to develop it into grass. And we worked giving the recommendation and clearing the land, the seeding mixes, getting that initial resource change to the grasses he has. After he got the grass established, then obviously, unless he wants to be a cowboy, he has to put up a perimeter fence. So now he has to do all that work. Once that perimeter fence was up, then that's where we worked a little bit more closely together, is how it could be utilized most efficiently in a grazing system. How does it be broken up? In his case there, he created a central lane, an alleyway, and so all the pastures kind of come off that center lane. Then as we put the water system in, we were able to, again, follow the fence lines, so each of the pastures have access to water. That's an important factor of the grazing system. Deer Track Farm was recently recognized for their conservation efforts. This is done through a program through the Department of Conservation and Recreation, which is actually handled through the local conservation district. In this case, it's Tri-County City Soil Water Conservation District. He did receive the plaque that was awarded to him at the Board of Supervisors. The district arranged at one of their meetings to do the public recognition for Bob and his work here. And then they are given that sign that you see on the side of the barn to post, hopefully somewhere prominently where people can see that they have been selected as someone who's a good example of conservation. From his pasture management, why he was selected is, first of all, excluding the animals from protecting the surface waters by excluding them from surface waters, developing this pasture system. If you find any erosion here, it's just incidental, or it might be a little cow path, but it's basically that he has done everything he can do to keep his soil in place on the fields, and by doing that has kept those waters clean. So that's where that sign comes from. He's transformed what was open crop land into land that now has a good solid conservation cover on it and is being well managed from, like I said before, the conservation standpoint, but also from his standpoint of making a living off this property and using some of the different conservation techniques along with all the other types of things that his breeding program, the other things that are part of a farming system. As you come into this farm now, you have to come through a subdivision. That subdivision was part of the original farm that Bob had bought, stuff like this. So it's, in a sense, it's right in his backyard. He wanted to protect what he's done, his life's work here. And through our agency, we had what's called the Grassland Protection Program, where we could enter into an easement with a farmer, in this case, that it has to have grassland, whether it be for hay, pasture, whatever, but it had to be grassland. So this farm will remain in grass because that's part of the thing. For our easement, it has to be in grass. It can't grow up into trees. It's not going to grow up into houses. That's Bob's dream. What you see here is what is going to be passed on for this generation and future generations.